Hello, and thank you for joining us for this webinar Wednesday. My name is Sharon, and I'm with SIPA, your Colorado Government Authority, helping you get more information and services online. In today's webinar, we'll be learning about cybersecurity from the folks over at Optiv, James Turgel, Amanda Cortez, and Ali Emmons. Before we get started, please go ahead and turn on captioning if you need or desire, and note that during this webinar, you are muted. If you have any questions or would like to communicate with the presenters at any point during the webinar, please use the chat box or the Q&A feature. We'll be answering all the questions at the very end that you post in there. We'll unmute everyone at the end for any remaining questions that you might like to ask just in person. We'll also have some poll questions for you to answer during the presentation and a post-webinar survey, and we deeply appreciate your feedback. Please join me in welcoming James, Amanda, and Ali from Optiv. We appreciate their time and look forward to what they have to share. It is a jam-packed presentation, I can tell you that. Also on the call is SIPA's Sales and Marketing Director, Beth Justice, and our Operations Assistant, Sarah Fisher, if you have any questions for us. Thank you all for joining us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to the folks at Optiv.
So good morning, everybody. My name is James Turgel. I'm a vice president here at Optiv, and I run our global advisory, risk, and board relations practice. I have been doing this for about 3 years here at Optiv. Prior to that, I was with Deloitte & Touche, one of the big four accounting firms, for about 3.5 years running their board relations program as well. Prior to that, 22 years with the FBI. I entered the FBI after having run my own law practice for about 5 years. Entered the FBI in the mid-90s, worked everything, you name it, counterterrorism, counterintelligence. My cyber experience started in 2001, 2002, when the FBI really started to understand that cyber was going to be a part of everything and every type of case that we did. Went on to be named as the special agent in charge of our Arizona field office during the Gabby Gifford shooting, the Fast and Furious ATF gun scandal. So I have a lot of what I call unfortunate national level crisis response and crisis mitigation experience. Was then brought back to headquarters and named the Chief Human Resources Officer. So I have the people side of the people, process, and technology aspect of this. And I ended my FBI career as the Executive Assistant Director for Global IT and the FBI's Chief Information Officer. So I have a broad background, certainly having worked cyber for the majority of my FBI career, creating cyber task forces and actually working at boots on the ground, going back to 2001. So today we're going to talk about who Optiv is and kind of give you a sense of what the state of the threat is out there in the world. What is the state to the threat of organizations like yourselves who are participating today? We're going to go through and look at how are those, what are those threats? How do those threats affect you? What are the areas that we can provide either products or services or advisory, right? How do we help you get the most of what you need protection-wise as far as your cybersecurity? And then I'll take as many questions as we can at the end. So let's get started. To say that the world is changing at rapid speed is a gross understatement. Digitization, right, has made speed the basis of competition. And at Optiv, we kind of think of this, right? Today, the world is all about speed, whether it's a 12-second news cycle, right? It's speed to hire, it's speed to innovate, it's speed to market, right? Speed has become the new business currency out there in the world. And it doesn't matter whether you're Fortune 500 company, right? You're the city of Colorado Springs or city of Westminster, right? Speed is everything. You're either the customers out there or certainly your citizens demand speed in everything that they're doing. And within the context of this whole concept of digital transformation, it leads to this rapid advancement of technology, right? We're talking about AI, we're talking about quantum, right? There's all these things that make the speed of digitization that much greater. 2/3 of the world's gross domestic product will be digitized by the end of this year, right? That'll drive $7 trillion in digital transformation investment, right? And that's just a tremendous amount. I've got a little video here to kind of tell you how we think about it at Optiv. One of the things that I think is great about that video is it shows how fast the world is moving, right? Whether it's business, whether it's cities, you name it, the world is just moving so fast. And on the bottom of that slide, it talked about Optiv, a category of one. And I want to explain what that means. The whole concept of a category of one is Optiv is a pure cybersecurity organization. We do the sales products, we do the services piece, we do the advisory piece, and then we have individuals like myself who work this literally from the top down. My role every day is to spend time with boards of directors, C-suites, right? Whether that's on the private side, but certainly on the government side, right? It's spending times with your IT folks, it's spending times with your mayors, your governors, and so it's the ability of all of us at Optiv to provide you with that sense of meeting you where you are as a customer, as a client. One of the reasons I left the Big Four was because I liked the personal nature of what we do here at Optiv. We're going to meet you where you are, right? Wherever you are in that IT and cyber journey is where we're going to meet you. Yes, 64% of the Fortune 500 clients we actually have clients of. We have over 6,000 total clients that span, again, 64% of the Fortune 500. But these universal challenges that you see on this slide, it doesn't matter whether you're a Fortune 5, a Fortune 1000, right? Or you're a city, you're a county, you're a state, right? On the phone today, I believe we have individuals from the city of Colorado Springs, city of Westminster, Grand County Library, right? Pueblo County, just amazing cross section of state and local organizations. And every one of these different challenges it affects you, right? Whether it's work from home, whether it's compounding technical debt, resource shortages, that is the biggest from a state and local municipal type of area. You guys are having to do more, you're having to do it faster, you're having to do it with less budgets, right? And that's the hard part, right? The threat actors out there, and I'll go over a bunch of them, they are highly resourced, they are highly motivated, and a lot of them are actually paid by nation states like China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. And so there is a tremendous challenge out there. And back to the resource shortage piece, unfortunately, there are about somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million unfilled cybersecurity positions out there globally, right? This is such an issue. It is such a growing concern. It is such an increasing threat environment, but yet we don't have enough people to actually do the roles, do the jobs, and be that experience to be able to come in and help you, again, get where you are. New frontiers, right? Digital transformation, cloud, all of these things require some really significant skill sets. And so it's one of those things that we really need to think different about. How do we approach this? Another thing that I want to talk about is this whole concept of compounding technical debt. So if you look across our 6,000 clients, On average, our mid-tier client has between 75 and 90 different technologies within their network ecosystem or their stack. So imagine between 75 and 90 different technologies. You've probably had, some older, some are newer, some could be misconfigured, some could be not installed completely or completely configured. It's a real complexity problem. When I took over as the CIO of the FBI, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, hundreds. I mean, when I took over, we were FBI was a 112-year-old organization. So imagine the amount of technology, imagine the applications, imagine the technical debt, all the security that we tried to bolt on after the fact, right? And that's what makes this so difficult, especially with the compounding technical debt, right? And the integration complexity of how do you integrate those 75 to 90 different types of technologies. It's really tough. And it is one thing that is at the highest list of vulnerabilities out there that threat actors actually know and absolutely take advantage of. So a little bit more about Optiv. We are the leading cybersecurity firm in the world, hands down. Again, we are a pure play cyber organization. We're not one of the big four that do accounting and tax and other things, right? We are a pure play cyber organization. We have approximately 2,600 employees worldwide. The whole concept of what we bring and being able to get you that holistic view of cyber, right? You see on the slide the 450 partners and network. Those partners are really critical to what we do and how we bring you, right? How we be that category one, and how do we meet you where you're at as an actual customer or client. Those partners are companies like Google, Microsoft, CrowdStrike, right? You've heard these names out in the world. You've seen them on Formula One cars and NASCAR races. These are organizations, these are tremendous partners, and our ability to be their global partner with you, right, allows us to bring you their technologies at a much reduced rate, right? Our ability to work with them to make sure that the integration occurs correctly, right? Again, go back to that, what I talked about earlier, the 75 to 90 different types of technologies that could be misconfigured. This really gives us the ability to not only bring you those technologies at a reduced cost, make sure that it's actually integrated appropriately, but also the services piece. How do we help you work it better? How do we either come in and help you understand what that technology does and how it works, and where it can provide threat reduction for you? But then there's also the advisory piece that allows me, excuse me, to come in and talk to your board of directors, your C-suite, your city managers, right, the governors, right, all of the state, local, federal entities, to allow me to be that person, to be the translator for how are we looking at all of these technologies? How are we looking at the integration of that, and how does it buy down risk based on the threat actors out there? So just a tremendous amount of both partners, certainly clients. And I love the fact, right, we have a 95% repeat client percentage, right? So that's loyalty, that's trust. And that's really, really critical when you're talking about our ability to, again, meet you where you're at. Let's talk a little bit about the risks. And I've got some statistics here that I find frightening, and I know you will too. So we talk in cybersecurity about, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Look, there are millions and millions of attacks out there every year. We'll have a couple polling questions on this, but from a global standpoint, you see on the top of the screen, top 5, cybersecurity is a top 5 threat to humanity. So the World Economic Forum and the World Economic Conference that meets every year does an analysis of the threats out there in the world. So imagine that we just got out of a global pandemic. But even with that global pandemic, right, infectious diseases are the #1 actual threat to humanity, but cybersecurity failure, so cybersecurity failure, widespread cybercrime, and cyber insecurity are the #4 threat to humanity and is now a top 10 risk of the most severe risks over the next decade to the global community. Think about that. Of all the things that we see going on in the world, you have to realize that cyber is a part of everything. Just as we at the FBI knew that cyber was going to be a part of all the cases and all of the what we did as an organization, the interconnection to the global community, it is really critical to understand that threat. Malicious activity in cyberspace is exponentially growing, more aggressive, more sophisticated attacks, widespread exposure, as well as increases in other risks. So it's really imperative to understand this is not going away. This has been increasing exponentially for the last 15, 20 years that I've been working this, and it only gets worse every year because it is such it's such a difficult task and vulnerability and threat to fight. I work counterterrorism cases. I worked September 11th attacks, terrorist attacks when I was in the FBI. It's really hard to get into the mind of a terrorist, right? It's equally hard to get into the mind of a hacker or a hacktivist. So these are really difficult cases to work. And so it really takes, right? It takes a holistic approach and all of government, all of private, and all of us to understand that. So I just gave you an idea, right? How big is the cyber threat, right? What is that, right? Top 4 threats to humanity is cyber risk, cyber crime, cyber insecurity. But here's how we think about it at Optiv, right? Our ability to break it down to its most component parts. Is it the threat? Is it application security? Is it identity? Right? Data governance and privacy. Those are huge areas right now. Really in both in the media, certainly from a regulatory standpoint, but it's also, if you look on the bottom, right, it's the solutions, right? It's not just a fact of scaring everybody, telling you, yeah, there's a big bad cyber threat actor out there, because there is, right? But it's what are we doing about it? How do we think about it? How are we able to translate those threats, understand the vulnerabilities that you have within your organization, right? Again, go back to those 75 to 90 different technologies and how old they may be and how many times they may not have been patched in the last 30 days, 6 months, a year. How do we solution that? How do we meet you where you're at? And also be able to come up with, is it the education strategy? Is it a cyber recovery strategy? You're going to hear me talk a lot in the latter part of today about resilience. I'm a firm believer, having worked hundreds of these cases, that look, it's going to happen. So if you understand that the threat is out there and the threat is coming, right? You plan for it. You create a resilient organization. So, and you have, what I call immutable or containered backups. You have all of these resilience aspects. And then when you get hacked, when you get victimized, because you will, it's just a question of loading up the most recent backup, limiting the damage and moving on, right? It doesn't have to be a chaos. It doesn't have to be a black swan event. So that's what we're trying to use. If you look at all the things on the slide, these are all the areas that we try to bring to you to help. One of the things I talked about earlier, right? This is all about trust, right? It's trusting, it's understanding who you are, where you are, right? Building that cross-functional trust. We're doing a lot of co-innovation with our partners, and also the ability to take those 450 partners and make sure that they're doing everything for you, right? To build not only your trust in Optiv, but your trust in that organization as well. This is one of those great slides. I've worked, again, cyber for probably what, 20, 30 years. Worked a ton of cases, and this really comes down to, if you remember nothing but these three things, cyber is all about data ecosystems and attack surface. You don't have to be the intended target. I worked the 2017 NotPetya ransomware wiperware attack conducted by the Russian intelligence service. And when they designed the NotPetya ransomware, actually designed it to take out the critical infrastructure of Ukraine, right? Power, energy, banking, the electrical grid. But only because most of the Ukrainian government and power grid used a software package called MEDOC, which is really like third-party accounting software like our Intuit or something to that effect. Because you had organizations in Europe, right? The British National Health System, you had Merck Pharmaceuticals, FedEx, their international shipping subsidiary in Europe, Costco, the shipping company. All of them used this third-party software, and the Russians embedded that third-party and embedded that malware inside that third-party software. The Russians, when they designed it, never intended to attack the British National Health System or Merck or Costco, but over 300 different organizations worldwide were affected by that attack. So when I say you don't have to be the intended target, you don't, right? Merck and FedEx were never the intended targets of the Russians back in 2017. So you got to realize, right? Break it down to its most basic parts. Data, ecosystems, and attack surface. Data is everything. I've interviewed these threat actors. I've locked them up. I've arrested them, prosecuted them, right? They're after the data, whether they ransom it, steal it, sell it, extort it, whatever, right? Data is everything, right? So let's go to our first polling question. Have you ever been the victim of a ransomware attack? This is really kind of a great question to start off with, because you'll see later when we start talking about the actual numbers of attacks that occur, it is really, really pretty frightening. And it's also one of those things where a lot of organizations don't like to talk about the fact that they have been an actual victim of a ransomware attack. That's why the Securities and Exchange Commission is now requiring publicly traded companies to talk about it, because no one wants to talk about the fact that they've been victimized and actually have become a victim of ransomware. And it's also very difficult because, one, you're balancing trying to figure out what you've been victimized, what data has been taken, what is all that, how does it affect you? And then you may have to pay a ransom. All right, so nope, never been a victim of a ransomware attack. That's the majority of the winner. But look at the yes within the last 1 to 3 years. That's a pretty 38%. It's a pretty high mark. And then within the multiple ransomware attacks. So it's out there. It's happening clearly every day. And we're going to talk more about where that goes from here. All right. So you guys just told me what is the effect on you, right? Within the last few years, multiple times, right? Within the last 1 to 3 years. Here's just a glimpse of what the cost is of these ransomware attacks. Average cost of a data breach in last year is over $4 million. Right? Almost $5 million average cost of a breach where remote workforce exists, because of the distinction between having to take all that security and push it out to the edge, is what I call it, the edge of those threat areas, the edge of the endpoints, right? It's more expensive if you have a diverse workforce. Look at the one in the middle, 50 plus million. 2023 total expected losses associated with just business email compromise and cryptocurrency. That's a tremendous amount of money. And then the unfortunate part on the right side, right, $44 billion total domestic and international exposed dollar losses from 2016 to 2023. And that is exponentially growing every year. So we talked about being who are the threat actors out there, but now this is the impact that it's had on your organization. This is the impact that it's had across the world. And honestly, these are totally they are lower numbers. These are the ones that we could just verify. Again, people don't like to talk about the fact that they've been victimized. So these numbers are much, much higher in actuality. It's just that most organizations really, really don't want to talk about it. So let's go to what I call my essential truths, right? This is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? No organization is immune. Again, I don't care who you are, whether you're the Department of Defense, whether you're the government, whether you're a Fortune 5 company, I don't care whether you're Microsoft, it doesn't matter. Everybody is a target out there. And unfortunately, the damages go well beyond the dollar issues because of reputation, brand, right? Trust with all of your data, because that's what we're talking about here. Remember, it all comes back to data. It's your personal data. It's the personally identifiable information of those customers out there in the private sector. For you, it's the personally identifiable information and credit card information and really the profile information of all of your citizens out there, right? That goes beyond just the dollar amounts here. There are a number of like basic blocking and tagging strategies that you can do, but unfortunately now the threat actors, know what they are. They are able to defeat a number of them. So it is really incumbent upon us to think differently. We need to think ahead of the threat. We need to stop just replying or trying to deal with the threat or the attack after it happens. Regulations are only increasing. And I talk about the concept, right? You can't protect everything. To protect everything is to protect nothing, right? No one has a budget big enough to protect everything, every part of all their endpoints, all their ecosystem, all their data repositories. That money doesn't exist, right? Even for the Fortune 10 financial institutions out there, right? Citibank, who, the CEO says, he'll spend, $10 billion and one more if that's going to make Citibank, more secure. But they've still been the victim of different cyber crimes over the last few years. So we have to start thinking about this differently. So one of the areas, too fast. So one of the things I know this is kind of an eye chart for you, but I want to talk about of how we look at it, right? So Optiv comes in and we're going to talk to you about understanding where you are on that journey of cyber risk and cybersecurity, cyber maturity, right? We call ourselves the advisory and solutions leader because we are, right? We are a category of one. And this is, having worked this both at the government level, having worked this in, at Deloitte and Touche for the Big Four, and now here, I really like how our approach, our strategy to this. It's this whole concept of advise, deploy, and operate, right? It's really, the advise piece is really starting, it comes in, we walk in the door and start to learn who you are. What does your stack look like? What does your network look like? How old is it? How many people do you have actually working on it? Because we talked again earlier about the resource shortages out there in the world. And then understanding what your needs are, what problems you're trying to solve, what is the most critical data in your organization? How are you protecting it, right? How are you looking at that from a digital standpoint? And then we start with the deploy pieces, which is really bringing in the ability of both, whether it's a tool whether it's an application, whether it's a service, right? Whether it's the advisory piece like I do, being able to not only come in and deploy the tailored, very customized cyber solutions for you, right? Negotiate that discounted pricing with all of those 450 technology partners out there, but really have the ability to not only, we can run it for you, right? We can operate the security operations center, but the other important part is to be able to teach you that transfer knowledge to upskill your full-time employees so that you can do it yourself. That is a really powerful way to help you kind of get to where you need to be. And then again, we do the operate piece, right? We assist with platforms and other technology migrations. Again, we have a 24/7 operations center that we can actually run it for you. But I love the fact that we give you the ability to customize what you need for your own threat environment, your own issues, and not try to just push some prepackaged deal upon you, because this is all about integration, implementation, and honestly being able to operationalize cybersecurity solutions. It is really critical, having worked this for as long as I have. One of the, as we talked about the stuff on the last slide, what does that all equal, right? If we hit this, right, we use the advise, deploy, and operate. We talk about all those areas of expertise on the right side. What does that mean, right? Where does that get us? It gets us to the secure business part, right? Every organization, I don't care whether you're a library or a state, local, tribal, city, federal government, right? Fortune 10, you are still operating a business. It may be a nonprofit business, it may be a government business, or it may be a for-profit business, but there are always business outcomes. And our ability to understand all those levels, right? Optiv has what we call our SLED program, which is our state, local, and educational program. So we're actually, designing solutions for you, right? The city, the small city, the large city, right? The county government, the state government, right? Across the board, right? Whether you're a county, whether you're a fire district, it doesn't matter. We're looking at this from your level to make sure that we're creating a business outcome for you. And that's really important. Here's some of the solutions. We talked about platforms before that I think is important to look at. We have MXDR, which is a threat detection and response service. I talked about resiliency earlier. That's our CRS platform. It's a resiliency platform. Again, services to nearly 6,000 clients, 450 vendors. But it's also the thought leadership, which will help you both explain the need for why you need these solutions. It also allows the thought leadership to develop research. We have a number of research fellows and engineering fellows inside of Optiv to help you with the really technical aspects of this. And then individuals like myself that speak to boards and others. A wealth of data, a lot of hands-on experience, especially in these solution areas, and we're coming up with more of them every day. I talked earlier about our security operations center. So we have 2 global delivery centers. We operate around the clock, 24/7, 365. Events managed annually. Imagine this, right? 50 billion events managed annually. So of all of our customers out there, who we are their security operations center. We are 100% responsible for it. And you see on the bottom all of the different industries that we cover, right? Whether it's healthcare, education, 60 different government industries, 90 in manufacturing. So we cross all of those. And the important part of having those 6,000 clients is really understanding the different needs that they have, what those industries are, right? And then understanding the vulnerabilities in those industries, and then down to the actual, client or customer, what are their vulnerabilities? Because from my vantage point, being the at the top of the level that I'm at, where I'm actually speaking to the boards and directors, I have the ability to look across those 6,000 clients to understand really what are your peers doing, what is your industry doing, what are those threat actors doing out there. And so I think it's really critical to understand we can do this for you, we can teach you how to do this, we can build one of these for you, to be able to, whatever it is that you need to do is to secure your own security. All right, I think we got another polling question. Should you pay the ransom? So I can't wait to see what you think about this one. So I sit with boards of directors of Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies, and I ask them, okay, show of hands, who in the room has a cryptocurrency wallet? And nobody raises their hand. Maybe one. And then I say, okay, who in here knows how to get a cryptocurrency wallet? Maybe one or two people raise their hands. So I'm like, okay, so you're telling me you're a multinational, multi-billion-dollar organization, and I'm sitting here talking to you about ransomware, and you tell me you want to pay the ransom, but you don't know how. You don't know how to get a cryptocurrency wallet, and you have no means to do it. So it's a really, really big problem. No, never. Exactly. Right answer. Look, I've worked terrorism cases, I've worked extortions, I've worked kidnapping cases when I was a brand new agent in the mid 90s, doing a lot of drug extortion and drug kidnapping cases. You never pay the ransom. What we're doing, every organization that pays the ransom is funding criminal activity. There are now organizations within the federal government that talk about something called the OFAC list, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC, actually has a list of 1,800 page list, which talks about organizations that are they're terrorist organizations, that if you as an entity who is a victim of ransomware actually pay these entities, you're going to be fined, and or there are potential criminal liabilities for it, which is kind of scary. So not only are you the victim of ransomware, but you can actually be victimized by the government because of it. One of the things I talk a lot about is the value of the third parties and the services piece. You can look at the benefits of increased security posture, our technology, our IP. This kind of gives you a look at how we look at whether it's an ecosystem solution or it's a services, or whether it's just a traditional tool or product that you believe that you need for your particular stack. We do a lot of research and development, especially in the cyber industry life cycle. We actually have a lab in our Kansas City office specifically for that. I've thrown a lot out there to you today, right? We talked about the threat actors, right? We talked about how they work. You don't have to be the intended target. And I always go back to, we have got to evolve as a world, right? We have to evolve. We should stop being victimized, stop reacting to the threats, stop reacting and trying to fix the attack afterwards. Let's think ahead of it, right? Let's be bespoke at scale. Let's build these flexible approaches and executions and platforms to help us think differently and get ahead of the threat. There is no one size fits all. Again, we have clients that are the smallest city municipalities, fire districts, and we have Fortune 50 companies. So we understand that there is not a one size fits all. Here are some of the accolades. I throw this up just to let you know, if you've never heard of Optiv, we have actually been around for a number of years, recognized by Gartner, Forrester. This one in the center, IDC named Optiv a leader in the IDC market space. This is a really critical recognition, especially from the people on the ground who are actually doing the work As far as our cybersecurity risk management services, right, we were named right alongside all of the big four. And so I think it's really important to talk about it, but to show you that we are legitimate. We are really the ones out there. We are a category of one. All right, third and final polling question. All right, can't wait to see what you answer to this one. I told you earlier about, right, we were talking about the numbers, right? What are the numbers of actual attacks every year? And even though you see the numbers on here, right, 1 through 4, what are those? What do you think those numbers are? They are still unreported. I mean, there are still a percentage that is unreported because you have organizations that, because they're worried about brand, they're worried about their competitors, they're worried about lawsuits, they're worried about all of these things, don't talk about the fact that they were victimized, especially if you're in an industry that has very little regulation, or not specifically a lot of regulation. Financial services, manufacturing, right? Those industries, those organizations, right, have both state and federal government regulations that require them to do it. But it's unfortunately, right, it gets unreported. All right, so the winner, 43%, is the 183.6 million in 2017 and the 623.3 million 2021. Yes, everybody all those 43% that chose number 3, you are correct. 623.3 million attacks in 2023 alone. And those numbers are rising. And if you look at the first quarter of 2024, we're actually on par to exceed our first quarter numbers of attacks from 2023. So I want to be able to kind of roll this up here for you to give you the ability, because again, whether you're a state entity, county government, city government, fire district, right? Whether you're part of higher education, it doesn't matter, right? There is a compliance aspect to everything that we do, right? Whether it's the voters, your citizens, who are the ones that wanting to ensure compliance, to protect their data, to protect their information. Our ability to help you figure that out, to be able to, whether you take, let's say PCI compliance or high trust compliance. And the bottom one on this, data strategy and data governance services, that is really critical, because data is everything. So, and this builds on itself, right? So we want to manage your risk to A, right, ensure compliance, right? B, maximize effectiveness, right? And what's that mean, right? It's technology management. It's literally using our architects and engineers to make sure that not only do you have the right tools for your environment, that those are deployed correctly, that they are configured correctly, right? And then be able to, like I had to do when I became the CIO for the FBI, that whole concept of security technology analysis and rationalization. Honestly, like taking a look under the hood and saying, what do we have? What are all these tools? Do we use them? Right? I had tools that we had in the FBI ecosystem where 1 or 5 people are using it. That's not efficient, and we could replace it with 2 or 3 others. So it's understanding that, and then it's creating those metrics to really understand, are we being effective in what we're doing, right? Because we talked about the maximizing, doing it from the regulatory piece, being effective, right? And then this builds on itself to, not are we now only effective, what are we doing? We're protecting the business. Again, doesn't matter whether you're a local, state, city, fire district, right, county, educational institution, right? We got the Grand County Library on this today. You're still running a business, and we need to think about it like that. Understanding organizational change management, understanding privileged access management, to make sure that we're helping you navigate all of those areas to protect your business. Because what happens at the end, right? If you do all of those things, if we talk about, as we talked earlier, right? If we take care of the regulation and the compliance piece, right? If we start to protect the business, right? If we understand what those business outcomes are, what does that do? It builds resilience, right? Your organization now, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And now we're at a situation where if you're breached, when you're breached, right? It's not chaos. It's not the entire world is crashing, because I've had those cases where I've walked in and an entire organization is completely destroyed. All of their information technology is completely destroyed. I talked to you earlier about the Maersk case, right? International shipping company that was never the intended target of the Russians. So imagine you have your technology stack, you have your network ecosystem. So Maersk is a global shipping company, and you had the CEO of Maersk running the organization, trying to communicate with his ships at sea using his smartphone and WhatsApp, right? No matter who you are, that's a bad day, right? And by the end of that, they ended up having to rebuild 4,000 servers, 25,000 laptops, 2,500 applications, right, within a 10-day period. That's critical. If you have resilient backups and you have built a resilient network and platform and a resilient ecosystem, right, the implications of that will never be as bad as what happened to Maersk. So I really believe, having been an FBI agent and working in communities all my life, whether it was, drug cases, whether it was, again, counterterrorism, cyber, one of the things that is really critical to me, because I spent 22 years, protecting my country, spent, 22 years in my communities, wherever I lived, and we moved 9 times, and during my FBI career, helping the community be better, right? Helping to build better efforts, bringing the whole concept of cyber, because again, we are all part of the global community. And whether it's, again, state, local, federal, tribal, right, fire district, we are all part of this community. So it's really important for me to work for an organization that has a sense of community. Optiv does a lot of support through charitable giving, volunteerism, 30,000 in donations to STEM from Optiv employees for our clients and partners. We do a lot of activities out in the Colorado community, nearly 4,000 hours in support of giving activities, 500,000 through our corporate donations. Really important for us to think about not only what are we trying to protect, who are we trying to protect, but also be a part of the solution, and be in there with our sleeves rolled up, right, on and in our communities. Our Optiv headquarters, world headquarters, is in Denver, and this is kind of what we live by, right? We're dedicated, we're connected, we're curious, we're courageous, and we're inclusive. It's really important for us to think of, we call ourselves the Optiv Nation, right? All 2,600 of us are part of that Optiv Nation, that community, right? A community inside of Optiv, but we're also all over the United States and Canada. And so our communities, right, are there as well. So focused on helping you figure out what the vulnerabilities are, what your ecosystem needs, right? And then volunteering with your community youth, right? Organizing hackathons at local colleges, donating our time, and certainly trying to be in our communities with you, right? With our partners, really important to us. And finally, this is something that I know Kevin Lynch and I are really proud of. Kevin Lynch, our Chief Executive Officer, we were really proud to be one of the Civic 50 for Colorado by CSR Solutions and Points of Light. we've really tried hard to make certain that we both understand what the Colorado community needs from a state, local, tribal, fire district level. What are the educational needs of our higher education and our secondary education and others? It's really, really important for us to be part of the Colorado community. And one of the things I think was really cool, what we did, I think 2 years ago, we actually we set a Guinness World Record for the largest basketball sentence. So we donated 1,145 basketballs to the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver that serves about 23,000 kids, and actually set a world record doing it. Really cool stuff, and I thank you for your time today. And I think we have time for questions.
I will work on getting everybody unmuted, but I know Erica, you had your hand raised if you have a question to ask.
Doing the poll. I'm sorry, but since I'm already unmuted now, so do you have any trainings that your company provides for educate more about all these aspects of cyber threats?
Yes, absolutely. And so, Erica, if we can figure out what organization that you work for.
I think I'm ready to apply.
Yeah,
I
Erica.
work for this. Yes, sorry, I work for the state of Colorado.
And somebody come in that was
Okay, yes, we absolutely have. We can tailor specific training on these issues.
Something in
Hold
Cleveland.
on.
News. And then we come to work and we be talking about the news event. Somebody
who
robbed the
is
liquor store or
talking?
something. Go, hey man, did you know this guy? Well, no. They all
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Yeah.
So yes, yeah, Erica. Allie Emons is on the line here. She takes care of the state of Colorado for Optiv, and so she will get with you so that we can handle that for you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yep, Erica, I can follow up with you after this call.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, what other questions do we have?
Any other questions from anyone? Feel free to put in the Q&A. Otherwise, if you want to raise your hand as well.
Anything you can think of, even FBI questions. Although we'll see which ones I can answer and not answer.
Quiet group today.
Yeah, it is, especially for a Wednesday.
Well, if anyone else has anything that pops up afterwards, you are welcome to get hold of us. I believe we've got a slide next after this one with our contact information. You can reach out to us or the wonderful folks over at Optiv. And if you want to get a quote for anything, we can absolutely help you with that too, because, we all need to do something to protect ourselves and our organizations. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Thank you all again for joining us. It was wonderful to have you here. Don't also forget to go to our website. We've got future webinars coming up May 8th with Evotech on the opportunities and risks of generative AI. And May 15th, we'll be doing an introduction and overview of SIPA's new Gov Grants program that we hope you'll consider applying for. It's going to be for some awesome big projects that we hope that we can really advance a whole lot of needs for our local governments and state agencies. We've got other services you can find there that you may need. We've got our monthly newsletter you can subscribe for news, events, updates, and valuable resources, and a whole lot more. We'll get this webinar up on our YouTube channel if you want to watch later and pick up some things you may have missed, or you want to share it with a colleague, that would be great. And we'll be sending out after this a survey. We hope you'll take the time to answer those 3 questions and help us make these things even more useful for you. Thank you again to our partners at Optiv for this wonderful presentation. We've really learned a lot and are glad they are here to help us all. And
Absolutely.
with that, I will let you all enjoy your day.
Thanks for having me, folks.